Welcome members to Scroll Society, a members-only club for those who are chronically online. I just want to say thank you guys so much for the reception of the first episode and the launch of this podcast. You have no idea how much it means to me. I don't know if you guys could tell in the first episode, I was so nervous and I was so anxious. And your support online and in the comments and just like people watching the video commenting and just everyone's excitement has helped calm me down and relieve my nerves. And I'm so thankful. Alhamdulillah, I am so thankful and I'm so grateful for this community that is so supportive. So I wouldn't have been able to do this podcast without you guys. And I really hope you enjoy this podcast and that we could have years upon years of wonderful members only sessions. And with that being said, let's start with today's episode. So today's episode is solely dedicated to the Justin Baldoni Blake Lively drama. I cannot explain to you how much I have been consumed by this case. And I know maybe we're all reaching a point where we're reaching a point of fatigue. We're exhausted. But guys, it has been consuming me. I feel like this is like Johnny Depp, Amber Heard 2.0, but it's a lot better because it's not specifically about domestic violence. It's about a movie about domestic violence. But this is all a major PR war. And as someone who is in the comms sphere, like I built a career, or my corporate job before was in comms and PR and social media. This is really my bread and butter. And this has really been something that I've been so entertained in consuming because I'm learning so much, but at the same time, I'm able to see it from this like PR perspective. And as a social media personality and a content creator, I can also see the impact of how like social media and the digital world is playing into the traditional comms sphere. So there's a lot to unpack here. So let's start. Where do I begin with this story? As you guys know, and I mentioned this in the last episode, over the summer, we were graced by the launch of this movie called It Ends With Us. It Ends With Us is a very popular book that was turned into a movie due to its popularity by an author called Colleen Hoover. She has built quite a following over this book, and I guess a lot of people had already criticized this book because it romanticizes domestic violence, but the full story is about how a girl finds herself in a domestically violent relationship and how she gets out. And that's why she calls it Ends With Us, because it shows you the cycle of trauma and how maybe her mother's experience with domestic violence helped shape how she also entered a relationship with domestic violence. And that's why when she has a daughter, she recognizes this kind of generational trauma and all of the lessons that she learned from, the previous generations to say it stops here. It ends with us. You do not deserve to be in this type of relationship and you do not deserve to have your mother model this violent relationship for you. It's such a beautiful story. I haven't read the book, but based off of the synopsis, I'm like, okay, this seems like a very powerful book. It was picked up by Justin Baldoni. Apparently 9 years ago, he read this book. He was so emotionally moved by the story, especially since he has a 3-year-old daughter. At the time, he had a 3-year-old daughter. I think now she's 9, 10, 13. I don't know. I don't know the math. But anyways, he had a 3-year-old daughter at the time, and he was so emotional reading this book, especially at the end when, spoiler alert, if you haven't watched this movie, I'm going to spoil it for you. In the end where Lily Bloom is carrying her child and she gives it to her her abusive husband or ex-husband. And she said, would you let anyone treat your daughter the way you treated me? And he said no. And it was like a realization for him that, he's treating someone else's daughter in this way. And that's how he's supposed to heal from his trauma and how he's supposed to recognize his toxicity and all of these things. And so Justin Baldoni said that he felt so emotional in that moment. Again, given the fact that he had a young daughter himself, that he was like, no, I need to make this into a movie. And Justin Baldoni has production history. Like he's an actor. He was well known in the show Jane the Virgin, which I was a huge fan of. I was like, oh my God, this guy, Rafael Solano, such a babe. But, and I don't want this to, I know a lot of people are like, don't let his good lookingness blind you. But I'm just saying this was my experience of how I was introduced to Justin Baldoni. And so he's an actor. He also started doing production and directing and started his own studio with his friends called Wayfarer Studios. And they create films of impact, from what I understand. They will do documentaries and movies and all of these things that are very intentional. They've always said that they wanted their projects to be of impact, something that would benefit society and not just entertain. So I always found that very interesting interesting. And Justin Baldoni also has this social media personality of being a feminist, of being a good guy. Like, I've been following him on social media ever since his Jane the Virgin days. And it was very interesting to see how a man is trying to work on his, I guess, like how society teaches a man to be masculine, but it's like toxic masculinity, and how he's trying to unlearn all of these things so that he could be a better man for women. And that's what he built his brand on, you know? So when he read the book, It Ends With Us, he's like, I need to buy the rights to this movie. I need to make this movie because this movie will have a lot of impact on society. It's a very beautiful thing, I guess, and it's very understandable. And I guess this was a passion project for him. Cue to him hiring Blake Lively as the female lead, as Lily Bloom, the hero of the story. And obviously a lot of people, when, you know, she was cast to be Lily Bloom, a lot of people were upset because she was a lot older than what the character of Lily Bloom was in the books. And so a lot of people did protest against it, but not enough for studios to change their minds. Blake Lively is a heavy hitter in the Hollywood industry. You know, she's already got a lot of popularity. She's cemented herself as a socialite, as a public persona. She's married to Ryan Reynolds, another, you know, big celebrity, given that he's, you know, starred in Deadpool, The Proposal, all of these things. Like, these are Hollywood heavyweights. And so their presence in the movie would help lift the movie in terms of promotion and sales, etc. And we didn't hear anything else negative about it. And then we started seeing images being spread of them filming the movie. And we started seeing Blake Lively as Lily Bloom in like quite questionable outfits. Like, she looked unfashionable to say the least. And as someone who hasn't read the book, I never understood the social media outcry from Book Talk for why they didn't like the way she was dressed. I was like, I guess, you know, this was a creative choice, or maybe it's part of the books and stuff. And a lot of people were like, no, this is not how we imagined her to be dressed as, etc. So that caused a little bit of commotion, but not enough for people to be so angry. And also, just to let you know, while they were filming this movie, there were the writer's strikes and the actors' strikes over the summer last year, 2023, 2 years ago. I'm still mentally in 2024. Anyways, and so that paused production for most of Hollywood in terms of their projects. So a lot of filming had to be pushed back, a lot of writing had to be pushed back, production, editing, all of these things. So It Ends With Us was supposed to be released in February of 2024 for Valentine's Day, I guess, but it got pushed back to the summer because they had to delay filming and all of these things. So this key part of the timeline will be really important when we talk about the lawsuit between Blake and Justin. All of this happened. We got the movie in the summer, and it was supposed to be this blockbuster summer, and we got the whole grab your florals, grab your girls, this is going to be a girls' night, and it's a beautiful rom-com, whatever, which obviously is not what the movie is. It's a movie about domestic violence. It was very clear from people who read the book, who are like avid fans of the written content, to be quite upset at the fact that this is being promoted as a chick flick or a romantic comedy or a romance, as opposed to being a very heavy source material. From the get-go, a lot of people were like, this is a little tone deaf, but not many people were that upset. People then started noticing that when they were doing the promotion, Blake Lively and the rest of the cast were promoting on one side, and Justin Baldoni was promoting the movie by himself. So it was like we had two separate camps promoting this movie, but both of them are promoting it in different tones. Justin Baldoni as the director, producer, and the lead, promoting this movie as a campaign for awareness of domestic violence, whereas Blake Lively and the rest of the cast and Colleen Hoover, who is the author of the book, were promoting this as a
It Ends With Us is in theaters now, so grab your friends, wear your florals, and head out to see it.
There's these great Louboutins that are also a close-up on them when we're dancing in the bar. Those are mine. I have a few of my husband's shirts and socks randomly in the movie. I have some of Gigi Hadid's sweaters in the movie.
You see it, it feels like a big, beautiful summer movie, but like we didn't have any budget.
Understands the themes of this movie, comes across you in public, and they want to really talk to you. What's the best way for them to be able to talk to you about this? How would you recommend they go about it?
Asking for like my address or my phone number or like my location share. Or I could just location share you, and then we could...
And we also got to the point where Blake Lively was creating cocktails inspired by the characters of the book. Cocktails that are made from her alcohol brand, Betty Buzz and Betty Booze. Like, she has two, I guess. I don't know. She also also was launching her hair care line in the summer, which also coincided with the promotion of this film. And then we had Deadpool and Wolverine, which created this crossover promotion. And I feel like the intention was trying to give us Barbieheimer, which is what I mentioned in the previous podcast, having it be a blockbuster summer for both Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively. And I think this whole thing, like with the tone of voice, so with the fact that they're over commercializing and trying to profit off of this film, trying to make sales wherever they can, that's what it looked like from our side, from the consumer side. And the fact that there was a clear division of two camps between the cast of the film and the makers of the film, it started fueling a lot of speculation when it came to the audience. A lot of people were like, what is going on? And why are they promoting it this way? And why is Justin on one side and Blake Lively on the other? And then people started speculating and they're like, oh, I'm so sure that Blake Lively is the problem here. And then we got the wave of hate towards Blake Lively. And I guess it wasn't a good summer for her because all of her interviews were hyper fixated. Everyone was over analyzing her social cues, the way that she spoke, her attitude, every single word that she uttered. Anytime she was doing any press junket or on the red carpet when people were speaking to her, how she responded and how she took the source material and the intention of the movie and promoted it was scrutinized. And so a lot of people felt like Blake Lively was extremely tone deaf, came off as extremely narcissistic, self-centered, and not respectful of the source material and not respectful of what it meant for the survivors of domestic violence. At the end of the day, this movie was created to raise awareness about domestic violence abuse, and to empower women and let them feel seen. And in the responses and the press activity and the marketing activity from Blake Lively and co, it just didn't resonate with people, especially people who are fans of the book and especially people who are survivors of domestic violence. So obviously, a lot of people started branding Blake Lively as the problem, especially since she already has a history documented online of her mean girl behavior, of her feuds with several co-stars, both on Gossip Girl, with Anna Kendrick from A Simple Favor. And it's just that there's been a lot of speculation and negative. Like, she's left a negative taste in people's mouths over the years that they took all of that feeling and piled it on over the summer based on her behavior. And it became like a massive, massive hate campaign against Blake Lively. But regardless of all of that, they still had a blockbuster summer. I think because of the feud or the speculations of the feud, a lot of people, including me, were so curious to see what this movie was about, especially since there was rumors going around that Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds were controlling this film and tried to take creative control from the producer, which is producer and director, which is Justin Baldoni, and tried to spin it for them so that they could get all of the credits and their vision is the one that everyone sees as opposed to Justin Baldoni. So we started hearing about how Blake Lively had her own edit of the film, how Ryan Reynolds wrote part of the script or rewrote part of the script and didn't let people, the scriptwriters know, the director know, etc. And so a lot of people wanted to see, like, is the version of the movie that we're seeing Blake's version or Justin's version? And so I think that drove a lot of people to go watch the movie, not the grab your florals, grab your whatever. It was just the fact that there was speculation of a feud that everyone's like, I need to go, out of curiosity, I need to go see it. So regardless of all of that, the hate train against Blake Lively, they had a very successful movie. Their sales were amazing and everything kind of died down. And you'd think that, okay, she had a bad summer, but she would have let it go because people forget. Like, we move on, We know that this whole drama happened over the summer, but every single day a new drama comes and things happen. And the elections happened. Everyone forgot about Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni. And we just thought it ended with the movie. It ends with us. It ends with the movie. And that's it. It didn't. Because ahead of the Christmas holidays, Blake Lively drops a lawsuit against Justin Baldoni and his production. So according to the lawsuit, which I have here. And it's not a lawsuit, it's a complaint. And what I've been told is a complaint is a pre-lawsuit, but you have to file a complaint first in the state of California. You have to file the complaint with the California Civil Rights Department. So I'm not a legal expert, but I guess there are certain paperwork that you have to fill before you can actually go ahead and sue someone. So on December 20th, 2024, Blake Lively accused Justin Baldoni of sexual harassment during filming, as well as a retaliation against Lively after she raised issues about his on-set behavior. She alleges that Baldoni hired a crisis publicity firm to engage in a social manipulation campaign to smear her while they were promoting the film over the summer. So essentially, Blake Lively is suing Justin Baldoni for two separate things. So she accuses him of things that are so weird if they were true. Sexual harassment that would have been on set while they were filming the movie. In terms of sexual harassment, she claims that he came into her trailer while she was breastfeeding and was just staring at her the whole time. She said that he kept talking about his porn addiction and how he never had to ask for consent from women before when he was like having sexual relations with them. According to her, he also apparently was being a bit too handsy and went off script when they were doing like the sexy scenes, which kind of opened my eyes to how they do intimate scenes for movies. Apparently these are all like choreographed and rehearsed and stuff like that. Again, this is so interesting because I never knew this because I just assumed they're like la la la, you know? But apparently, like, let's say if they had agreed that he can only kiss her ear, he'll go ahead and kiss her neck and her arms and whatever. And she'd be like, that's not what we agreed upon. That is not what we have choreographed. And so apparently he would go off script and say things that felt like he was talking out of character. So instead of saying like, oh, Lily Bloom, you smell amazing, he's like, you smell amazing, with the context of like, this is not scripted and he's probably talking to Blake. So it makes her feel very weird. Does that make sense? So apparently, like, he has demonstrated a lot of creepy behavior, cried for 2 hours in her trailer because he said that the public thinks she's unattractive. And apparently he fat shamed her by asking about her weight, which over the summer when that had come out, he said, no, I actually have a back problem. I've done surgery on my back. I only asked about Blake Lively's weight because I needed to lift her in a scene. So I needed to ask my personal trainer, like, how much do I need to train on my back? Am I able to do this or not? So it was like, his defense was that it was a safety issue, but she said, no, he thinks I'm unattractive and he was crying in my trailer for 2 hours because he thinks I'm fat. Keep in mind, Blake Lively filmed this movie right after she gave birth to her 4th child. So that gives you the context of the situation, that maybe she was a little bit more overweight because she was carrying her baby. Maybe she was self-conscious about the way she looked. Maybe she was postpartum. And look, and I have come out on social media when she dropped her lawsuit and I was like, if Blake Lively is telling the truth, then that is absolutely disgusting. As a woman, I've always wanted to side with women, especially when it comes to this kind of behavior like sexual abuse and manipulation and taking advantage of women in positions of power and stuff like that, especially in the workplace. Even though all of this was happening, there's a part of me that didn't buy it because of the second part of her lawsuit. Part of her lawsuit was the sexual harassment, and then the second part was the smear campaign. And that for me felt odd, that she would sue Justin Baldoni for a calculated smear campaign with screenshots that she obtained that are not from like a subpoena and not from a discovery. She managed to get those text messages from Justin Baldoni and his publicist because his publicist used to work for a company and then she left. So it's so complicated, guys, like it's so complicated, but Justin Baldoni had a publicist who worked for a company. This publicist decided to leave this company to start her own company. So when she was working for company A, she was using the company's phone. So she had to give back her phone when she quit her job or she got fired because they found out that she wanted to quit, which is drama on its own. So they managed to obtain all of these text messages because it's part of like company data, right? It's company property, the phone and stuff like that, that the owner of this company, you know, the head owner, the head publicist, like she got so pissed off that one of her employees was going to start her own company and taking a bunch of celebrities with her, saw all of this, saw the smear campaign that happened in the summer and was like, oh, Blake, I'm going to be bitchy. Here are all the receipts. Do with it what you may because I'm super pissed off that my employee left. Like, it just feels revengeful as opposed to like justice. Do you know what I mean? Again, I don't want to give my opinions just yet. I want to give you the facts, but like, this is such a frustrating case. Blake Lively has all of these texts making Justin Baldoni look so bad and that this was all a calculated smear campaign to take her down, to try to silence her because he was being a creep. So she's trying to use the first part that he was a weirdo sexual harasser and that's why he tried to like smear campaign and destroy me over the summer. And now like she's trying to hurt his reputation and, you know, kind of essentially blacklist him from the industry. And so when this dropped, I'm like, oh shit, you know, I feel so bad. Like I've misjudged Blake. and all of these things. And then I was like, wait a damn minute. And this is before the Justin Baldoni case came out, right? Or like his lawsuit came out. I'm like, wait a minute. She is claiming sexual harassment when this woman made a movie with Woody Allen. Woody Allen, the man who allegedly molested his 7-year-old child, his daughter, and the same man who then married his adopted daughter. Do you understand? Like, this guy's already been blacklisted. Well, he's not really blacklisted because Hollywood doesn't give a shit about men who harass women, right? They don't give 2 fucks if that happens. Unless it's a huge media campaign like what happened against Harvey Weinstein, they don't give a shit. Woody Allen's still making movies. Woody Allen molested his daughter. Woody Allen married his adopted daughter. 2 separate girls, might I add. This guy's a creep. And then there's still a bunch of celebrities who make movies with them, including Blake Lively. And it's not like she didn't know about this because all this happened in the 90s and this thing keeps coming up. But celebrities keep defending Woody Allen because he makes good movies. So I'm like, wait a minute. This girl doesn't give 2 shits about sexual harassment. She doesn't give 2 shits. This girl's also been seen photographed several times with Harvey Weinstein, her and her husband kissing his ass. And this may be before the Me Too movement, but still, from what we found out about the Me Too movement is that everyone in Hollywood already knew what he was doing. Just no one gave a shit to say anything about it. And they just wanted to kiss up to him. They just wanted to kiss up to him so that they could get their movies made. So I'm like, well, isn't this ironic? Maybe this is her karma. It still sucks. You know, the fact that something like this could happen to a woman. But I'm like, maybe this is the time that she will learn that believing, women is important and that, you need to make a stand and make a choice not to work with creeps, with weirdos, etc. Then I watched the TikTok from Molly McPherson. Now, if you guys don't know who Molly McPherson is, she is amazing. She is a PR person, right? She has a very long history in public relations, and she now comes onto TikTok to break down all of these news stories. Like, she's a commentator. She's also a consultant. Like, she still has her own company. She consults with celebrities. She consults with companies, all of these things. But she also does a lot of commentary and teaches you a lot of real life lessons. Like, she will take stories in the press, in the media, and deconstruct them to the point where she deconstructs and teaches you about timing. So she'll be like, if a story is released before the weekend, it's a story that needs to be buried. And if a story is released in September as opposed to August, she talks about how everything in PR is calculated. She teaches you about all of the ins and outs of good PR strategies, bad PR strategies, the specific wording. She'll break it down. So I absolutely love this woman. So I urge you to go check Molly McPherson out on TikTok. I think she also has YouTube now. I'm not really sure. I know she has a Patreon, where she does more intense breakdowns behind a paywall, which I haven't done yet, but I will. But she's so interesting to listen to. So she said, isn't it interesting that Blake Lively drops this story right before a major holiday? It's kind of like releasing the story right before the weekend. It's a story that you want to be buried, or it's a story, since it's a long holiday, you want to be dominating the news cycle. Because if most people in the press, if you're, the newspapers and the tabloids and all of them, everyone takes off during Christmas. Not many people are working. So you don't hear about a lot of tabloid stories coming out. There's not many stories coming out during the Christmas season because everyone's off. There's maybe 1 or 2 writers as opposed to having 10 writers on the team. So it'll either kind of get buried, or it'll be a story that will dominate because there are not many stories coming out. Even, all these celebrities don't want to release stories during Christmas because everyone's kind of sheltering. It's very interesting, the timing of when Blake Lively released the story and released a story with the New York Times.
So this isn't a story about the Justin Baldoni PR campaign. This weekend's story is about 2 PR campaigns, because Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds are waging one against Justin Baldoni, and they're doing it via a legal complaint. Public opinion is fluid. Before it was Justin Baldoni, now it's firmly with Blake Lively. However, Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds, the anti-PR publicity, machinations people, but they wield publicity up there with their buddy, Taylor Swift and Tree Payne, who's a master PR strategist. It doesn't mean that it's negative. It's just PR. But it's this weaponization of PR that I find problematic.
Reading it from her perspective as a PR person, she's a PR veteran, right? Who spent over 20 years doing public relations. She's like, this is a PR war. This is not about the sexual harassment. This is about winning the PR war because Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds had a really shit summer and they're trying to recover their public image because when you're in Hollywood, your public image is key. It's king. It's what gets you the roles or what doesn't get you the roles. It opens doors for you. So they're trying to regain control of the negative PR that they got over the summer. And so this is them trying to win this war and trying to silence Justin Baldoni and trying to reposition themselves within this narrative because it did not look good for them over the summer. And so I started looking at it from that perspective because I was like, as a woman, I wanted to side with Blake Lively because I want to say I want to believe all women. But at the same time, something about this, because again, before Justin Baldoni released his lawsuit, I'm like, something about this makes me feel like it's white woman tears. And I don't know what it was. Like, I can't explain to you. Like, when I first heard this story, I was like, is this too inappropriate for me to say? Is it too inappropriate for me to say these are white woman tears? And I remember I commented that on someone's video before I understood the full story of her lawsuit. I'm like, this feels like white woman tears. And then that feeling just came back to me. So then I Googled the weaponization of sexuality or sexual harassment with white women. And when I say I Googled, I mean I asked ChatGPT. And I had this conversation with ChatGPT. I call her Mindy. I love, having these intellectual conversations where I do research with ChatGPT and she gives me the 411 on many different things. So I asked ChatGPT, I was like, is there such a thing as weaponizing sexual assault by white women? And I asked this question because I do remember the story of To Kill a Mockingbird. I don't know if you guys know this book, but I studied this book while I was in high school. It's a very powerful book. Love, love, love the story. It brings me to tears all the time. But there's a section in the book where I think there was a white woman who falsely accused a black man of raping her because I guess she got caught with him or something like that. I don't really remember exactly, but I do remember that's when I first learned about something called white women tears and how a lot of white women during the days of slavery and the days after slavery, but still during the segregation, were weaponizing sexual assault to gain dominance over colored people. And I found that absolutely disgusting, especially when you read about these cases and you realize that these black men did nothing, but these white women wanted to see them lynched and wanted to see them violently attacked. And it was, again, just all about dominance and control. I don't know why. I just had this feeling, was like, something about this is giving me white women tears. So I asked ChatGPT and ChatGPT was like, yeah, there is historical and social evidence to suggest the concept of weaponizing sexual assault by white women. This phenomenon can be understood through the lens of history, systemic racism, and societal power dynamics. Okay, and so I explained to you about the racial dynamics in the U.S. With the example of To Kill a Mockingbird, but ChatGPT goes into it and says, during the era of slavery and Jim Crow laws in the United States, accusation of sexual assault by white women against black men were often weaponized to uphold white supremacy. These accusations were frequently used to justify lynchings, violence, or systemic discrimination against black men, even when there was no evidence to support the claim. And they give the example of the case of Emmett Till in 1955. And it also has some colonial context. In colonial settings, white women's accusations of sexual impropriety or assault against indigenous men, so the Native Americans, were sometimes used as a tool to legitimize colonial violence and suppression. These claims reinforced the image of indigenous peoples as savages and provided moral justification for their oppression. So we already know, historically speaking, that white women have weaponized sexual assault to gain control over a certain situation, to gain dominance, a sort of assertiveness, dominance, control over situations that they don't have or they don't usually have control over. So we talked about the racial element, which I don't think we have here because Justin Baldoni is also white, but it also talks about power dynamics. In some cases, white women's victimhood was amplified due to their perceived purity or virtue. So now that we know that white women tears exist, and they exist within the context of racism, something tells me that there is an intersection between white women tears when it comes to dominance and control over men, especially in this kind of Me Too era. right? Removing race out of the situation, I do feel like there are certain white women, especially in Hollywood or especially in the United States, when we see the United States as a whole, like you see a lot of Karens who try to self-victimize themselves to gain control over a certain situation, to gain dominance. I don't find this hard to believe that Blake Lively would be the type of person who weaponizes her white woman tears to get what she wants, because this is the same woman who got married on a plantation. You can Google this plantation. It's called Boone Hall. It's very beautiful. It's where they filmed The Notebook and Forrest Gump. It is also very known for having a lot of tragic incidences with slaves, to the point where there's also a street inside this estate called Slave Street. And you have little cottages of where the slaves used to reside. And now they're like cute little cottages. Like, no. These are torture cottages for the slaves. And so this is the same woman who decided, this place that holds so much trauma and, was the place where like a lot of slaves died and were tortured. This is going to be the place I get married. And then proceeded to try to create a fashion brand inspired by the colonial times, inspired by the fashion of the slave owners. Like, there's something weird about Blake Lively. Again, going back to it, I am not surprised, and I wouldn't be surprised if she tried to weaponize the white woman tears and weaponize sexual assault to try to gain dominance and control of the situation, because she is not getting what she wants. And so, with that being said, on New Year's Eve, Justin Baldoni drops his lawsuit in which he sues the New York Times. He doesn't sue Blake Lively just yet. As of today is the 4th of January. And this episode will come out on the 6th of January, inshallah. As of today, he hasn't sued Blake Lively, but his team has said that they are getting ready to also sue Blake Lively. But on New Year's Eve, Justin Baldoni has decided to sue the New York Times for libel. And he hasn't just sued them regularly. No. This guy is suing the New York Times for $250 million for libel, because they falsely reported on a story that is essentially defamation. And in this, he has published all of the receipts. He has countered every single point that Blake Lively has attacked him on. And he said, actually, no, that is not the full context. Here are the receipts and here are everything that has happened. So like the example of her saying that he comes into her trailer while she's breastfeeding and he's just staring at her. And she's like, this is not appropriate. He's like, girl, no. You invited me to your trailer and you said you were breastfeeding and you told me I can come run lines. And here's the text. When it came to her saying that he was being really weird and he didn't hire an intimacy coordinator, because she alleged that he started kissing her in weird ways and stuff like that because they didn't have an intimacy coordinator and nothing was choreographed or as safe as it should be. He has published texts to say he had hired an intimacy coordinator way before they started filming, and that he wanted Blake Lively to meet this lady so that they can, choreograph all of these intimate scenes together in the most safe and secure way. And she said, no, it's fine. I don't need it. I'll meet this coordinator once we start filming. So she completely brushed off the fact that, he brought an intimacy coordinator and then later said that he never brought one. So which is it? Did he bring an intimacy coordinator or didn't he? I forgot to mention that when she filed this lawsuit, she also said that there was a document. Remember, guys, I told you that they had to take a break because of the writer's strike and the actor's strike. So when they took that break, she said that she didn't want to come back unless that, he met all of her demands, according to her and according to her lawsuit. So in those list of demands, she said, Justin and co should not show her these intimate videos. Justin and co should follow whatever regulations. Justin and co should not talk to her. Justin and co should not come to her trailer. All of these things, like these safety precautions. He comes out and he said, I never signed those documents. The first time I ever saw those documents were when you published them with the New York Times, published them in the lawsuit, and when you published them in the newspaper. I never saw these. I never signed that document. What is happening here? Who is lying? Someone is lying here. And we don't know who. Justin Baldoni also came with a lot of receipts when it came to the text messages that she released, which, remember, we said that she got a hold of them in not legal ways. Well, I mean, it is a legal way, but it's a very sneaky way. And so he was like, you guys are very selective with all of the text. You didn't give everyone the full context. Like, if he said, we want, this is going to make her look bad, and she just put that one text, she didn't show the rest of the text that said, we need to show people that we didn't do this. Is this us? Did we do this? Giving giving full context that he's not the one behind the smear campaign. And actually, if you read the full text message and the full text thread between him and his PR team, they're like, how do we minimize this? Because we don't want negative press. So this guy is actively trying to be the good guy. And it seems now that we have both sides that Blake Lively's team is trying to manipulate and gain control of the narrative and the situation, which is why they omitted a lot of the text messages and the context, so that makes Justin Baldoni look really, really bad. Now, there's also a part I have in my notes here. There's also a part that I found really, really interesting. She said that he was trying to objectify her and sexualize her even throughout the movie when they were trying to work on the character and all of these things. And, she was not comfortable with the situation. And then the text messages that Justin Baldoni released, which he released literally everything, showed that she wanted to be sexier. She wanted her character to be sexier. And it's so funny because there's a part of the movie where she's wearing a beanie in the movie and these overalls and double pants and a crop top and whatever. And she had a conversation with Justin Baldoni over text where she's like, I really think that, I should be wearing a beanie because the beanie is going to make me look so sexy. And she's trying to justify the beanie because she's like, I want the character to look sexier. But then in the lawsuit, she's like, he's trying to objectify me and my character. And it's just like, which is it? Because the text messages show that you want to be objectified and you want to be sexualized. And you're the one who's making the decisions over the costumes. Again, which I found super interesting, is that Blake Lively has this... And again, I don't want this podcast to be this anti-Blake Lively situation. I just can't stand her after seeing everything and her interviews. And I've been watching I've been watching everything and I've been doing all my research. And I'm like, I really don't like this person. She comes off horribly. But if you see in the press junkets and all of her interviews, she talks about how, for example, wardrobe is so important to her and how she gets into character when she wears the clothes and stuff. And she said that most of the wardrobe from It Ends With Us, which is horrendous. I'm going to say this, I'm not the only one who says this. Everyone on the internet's like, this is really bad styling. She has admitted in the interviews that most of the wardrobe is her wardrobe and wardrobe that she borrowed from her husband and she borrowed from Gigi Hadid.
The boots were mine. There's these great Louboutins that are also a close-up on them when we're dancing in the bar. Those are mine. I have a few of my husband's shirts and socks randomly in the movie. I have some of Gigi Hadid's sweaters in the movie.
I don't know why that was relevant. And it got me thinking, I know this is going off on a tangent, but I remember thinking to myself while I was watching the movie, I was like, I'm so distracted by the fact that Lily Bloom is carrying this huge Valentino bag. And I remember this so clearly because she's wearing these hobo outfits that's all over the place, super unstyled. But then she's carrying the latest Valentino bag in this Valentino print, and I'm so distracted by it that it took me out of the situation of the film. It took me out of a very intense scene. I think she was going to visit her mom after her dad died and stuff, and I was like, I'm supposed to feel emotional, but I'm not, because all I can think of is this Valentino bag. And so then watching the press junkets after and seeing that these are all her items, she is her character, or she's trying to bring herself into the character by bringing her own clothes and stuff like that. It really gave me this indication that she was taking control of the situation. When you hear the fact that Ryan Reynolds rewrote certain parts, again, they are spilling the tea themselves. They are so arrogant when it comes, and uncalculated when it comes to their red carpet interviews, their press junkets, it's no filter, all over the place kind of thing. They spilled the beans on the fact that Ryan Reynolds rewrote a scene. And apparently he rewrote the scene during the writer's strike, which again, that should be reported because that means they were working during the strike, which I guess goes against the strike or something like that. And it just gave this full indication, to me at least, and not just to me, I guess to a lot of people on the internet, that Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively were really trying to take over this project as their own. And the accusations from people on the internet throughout this whole thing, from the summer up until now, that, Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively are trying to buy or aggressively or have a hostile takeover of the rights to this book, is very valid now, because obviously this book is going to be, or it's supposed to be, turned into a second movie called It Starts With Us, which is about her relationship with this new guy, or her childhood love, who comes to save her from her abusive, husband. That movie's never going to happen. Now, with all of this negative press and all of these things, they're never going to get their hands to the rights for that movie because no one's going to want to watch this movie. It's not going to be made. And it just feels like this was probably their intention. They saw that there's a possibility for them to be making a lot of money, to get a lot of recognition and awards, which, by the way, in Justin Baldoni's lawsuit, it says that she tried to strong arm herself or tried to strong arm the team and the production crew to get her a legitimate producer title and to have her get nominated to be part of like this. I guess like producers have their own like group or guild, and so then they can get nominated to be producers. Like you have to be legitimized, and she tried to strong arm Justin Baldoni and his team to write a letter of recommendation to try to get her like this producer accreditation when she doesn't deserve it. So from all of the things that we're seeing and from the way that they speak and from just them being them, you start to realize that all of this is it's a power war, you know? It's a move to gain control over the situation and just to take. And that's really sad because that takes away from the message of the movie and the intention of the movie and the impact that it could have had, especially now that I think about it, when it comes to Blake Lively with the sexual assault claims. If it turns out that Blake Lively was lying or misreading situations or trying to, weaponize sexual assault to garner control, essentially manipulating the situation and lying, then that does such a disservice to people who are sexual assault survivors and domestic abuse survivors, because that delegitimizes any claims that they would have, because here we have a public figure, a woman with so much control and power, who found herself needing to lie about such a situation so she can get more power and leaving an example to the rest of the world that women are liars and making it much harder for women who are seriously in these situations to be taken seriously, because people will think, oh, you're just Blake Lively. You're just like Amber Heard. You are lying to gain control and get what you want. And that is extremely unfortunate and very sad and such an insult to the female community who are trying so hard to be taken seriously. It just does them such a disservice. To me, in my personal opinion, I feel like I tried to report the story with no opinions, but honestly speaking, I don't believe Blake Lively. I don't believe Ryan Reynolds. I feel like this is manipulation. This is an assertion of dominance and control because they saw the potential of awards, accreditation, recognition, money when it comes to this movie, and they were not happy that they're not going to be the ones who get all of the accreditation and all of the awards and the accolades. And, I feel like once you have that much money, it's not even about money, right? I feel like once you have that much money, they don't care about making more money. They care more about the validation. And I feel like this movie had so much potential to give people the producer awards and director awards and acting awards and writing awards and all of these things that they were like, fuck, I want to get that. This is going to be my movie. So instead of, working or learning from this experience and looking out for the next book and the next movie, they're like, I want it now. And they tried to snatch that away from Justin Baldoni and his team. So yeah, I find this whole situation really interesting. I feel like I'm so disappointed if my feelings are true. And I think this will be the downfall for Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds' careers. Also, Justin Baldoni, I don't think he's going to come out of this well. But in terms of, the Hollywood super it couple, I don't think Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds will come out of this winning. I think this is it. They've tainted their careers for good. In my personal opinion, if I was their lawyer and their PR consultant, I would just be like, fucking leave it in the past. You guys got your money, you guys got the recognition, just move on. You guys are above this. You guys are Hollywood royalty. But I feel like ego got in the way. I feel like Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively have such big egos that they could not let this go. And I feel like also the Swifties are gonna hate me for this, but I cannot stand Taylor Swift. And I feel like Taylor Swift has similar characteristics to Blake Lively in the sense that they are not happy when other people around them win. They have a take-it-all mentality, and they will self-victimize themselves when it benefits them, when they think that it's going to win them a lot of sympathy, a lot of support, especially when they feel like they're not getting that attention and validation. So I feel like some of the tactics that Blake Lively is taking is learned from Taylor Swift. And like I said, just weaponizing the white woman tears. It's so disgusting. It's so disgusting. And just as a side note, I find it so interesting that Justin Baldoni is suing the New York Times first before he sues Blake Lively, because he knows that suing the New York Times means that there's going to be a huge opportunity for discovery. And when I say discovery, I mean everything, all the text messages, all the emails, everything that Blake Lively, Ryan Reynolds and co and their, production team, their PR team, all of them had conspired. All of that will be public information. So we will finally be able to see from both sides, like both Justin Baldoni's receipts and Blake Lively's receipts, we'll be able to see everything so that we could make an informed decision. And I know this is something for the court of law, but it will be made for the public, because at the end of the day, according to our queen, Molly McPherson, this is not about justice. This case is not about justice. This case is a war for public relations and a war to gain control of the narrative from both sides. And so I feel like Justin Baldoni's team was very calculated in the sense that they are first suing the New York Times for libel so that they could prove that there was a coordinated attack on him and his reputation, especially with the selective evidence that they have, like they didn't put the full text, all of these things. So I find that very, very interesting. And I think this is going to drag on for such a long time. And yeah, no one's going to win. But I also find very interesting, and this just came to mind, and I'm so sorry that this is I've been rambling for the last hour. I find it so interesting that Blake Lively is accusing Justin Baldoni of a coordinated smear campaign when it feels like what she's doing is a coordinated smear campaign. It kind of feels like every accusation is a confession. And I know we've been using this phrase very politically, but I feel like this also works here, that every accusation is a confession. If she's accusing him of a public smear campaign, maybe she's the one who's doing the smear campaign. Maybe she was the one who did the smear campaign within the cast, which is why the cast members decided to side with her as opposed to Justin. Like, I know this is something that a lot of these feminists online are like, then why aren't the cast following him? Because everybody wants to secure their next job, because, you would want to be on the side of Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively, because Ryan Reynolds is an A-list celebrity and Blake Lively is also an A-list celebrity. Everyone is out for themselves, especially in Hollywood. Everyone's thinking of their next meal. They're thinking of their next project. They're not secure. You have to schmooze in Hollywood, So obviously all of these people are like going to side with someone who is going to benefit them in the long run. So yeah, that's just my opinion. So I genuinely feel like this smear campaign, or the idea of a smear campaign, comes from the side that is doing the smear campaign. And I say this only because we've already seen this happen on a political scale, of how smear campaigns can actually work and how you can easily paint someone in the wrong and how you can easily buy publications. I feel like the New York Times is not a publication to believe anyway, because this is the same New York Times that weaponized sexual assault last year to justify a genocide. They wrote a false story, a false rape called The Screams That No One Hears. What is it called? Yeah, their article was called The Screams Without Words, How Hamas Weaponized Sexual Violence on October 7th. And then it was debunked, and we found out that this is propaganda from Israel, and that the girl who wrote this article works for Israeli intelligence. So she's not even a full-time writer. And she managed to write this story that went viral, that manufactured consent for the American public to consent to going to war and sending billions of dollars of taxpayers' money to fuel a genocide. So the New York Times in itself is not a credible source, and I feel like they will post any story to the highest bidder, that would benefit the highest bidder, the highest payer. So when Blake Lively's team says, oh, this is a calculated smear campaign against a woman. I'm like, bitch, you're a white woman in Hollywood. Your husband has $250 million. You guys are worth so much. You don't even need to act. The power dynamics don't even make sense. Like when we talk about sexual harassment, usually sexual harassment happens when there's a power dynamic, when someone is a lot more powerful than you, that you feel that you're not able to speak out. But for you to be a Hollywood celebrity superstar, have a heavier weight in the industry than the director. Like, yes, he's the director and he directs you, but like at the end of the day, you're the big star. He's not that big. He was on Jane the Virgin, for fuck's sake. You had the ability to leave at any time. In Justin Baldoni's lawsuit, he said that there were several times where she was like, if I don't get my way, you have to find yourself another Lily Bloom. I feel like she knew the weight that she had. She knew the weight that she carried. She knew who she had behind her. She knew that she could be able to manipulate the situation because she holds the cards. She's the more powerful celebrity in this situation. So it's very hard for me to say, oh, this is an imbalance of power dynamics and, he's able to sexually harass her because, like, I don't think so. I think he'd be scared of her, which is what he seemed like he was, which is why he hired his PR agency, because he was terrified because she kept making threats. She kept being a diva. She kept trying to take control of the situation. She removed him from the movie editing process. There was talks, especially in the lawsuit, you can see, he says that she took over the movie. She took over creative control. She had her own editor edit. She had the Deadpool editor edit the movie and then show it to Sony and be like, publish my cut, not Justin's cut. Who the fuck do you think you are? You're not the director. But she wanted her movie or her version of the movie to be published and Justin Baldoni's to be thrown away. He wasn't allowed to come to the movie screening until last minute. She didn't want him there. This woman has so much control and power. You cannot tell me that she was being harassed and made to feel uncomfortable because she's the one who's dominant in this situation. Usually when it comes to sexual harassment, actually, let's ask Google. Let's ask ChatGPT. Please define sexual harassment. Sexual harassment refers to any unwelcome or inappropriate behavior of a sexual nature that creates a hostile, intimidating, or offensive environment. Key considerations: power dynamics. Sexual harassment often involves an imbalance of power, where the harasser uses their position to exploit or intimidate the victim. And I have a very hard time believing that a woman of such impact and power, who had so much control over this film, whose husband was on set all the fucking time, was put in a position where she felt uncomfortable. I genuinely think that this woman felt uncomfortable, that she was not being validated, that she was not the center of attention, that she was not the one who was going to win the accolades and the awards and all of these things, that she didn't get her way, and she lost control of the narrative over the summer. So this is just a woman trying to regain control. But again, I may be wrong, and we'll find out soon when this case unfolds, because this case will definitely unfold, because Justin Baldoni is suing the New York Times. He's going to start suing Blake Lively. She just filed a lawsuit suing him for emotional distress. So all of these things means that we're going to be getting so much more content, so much more context, so much more information to understand what the fuck happened on that set. Like, we're going to find out so many things. So yeah, but that's just my personal opinion thus far. I have a hard time believing Blake Lively, not because she's insufferable, but because of this whole situation. I feel like we have eyes and ears. I'm so sick and tired of these like feminists online. Like, I'm a feminist. I believe in women's rights, but that doesn't mean that I fight misogyny with misandry. Okay? There are so many women who are like, just believe all women. You're not a girl's girl. No, I'm there for fucking justice. I care about fairness. I'm not going to defend a woman because she's a woman. I'm going to defend someone because they're right. They were done wrong. But I'm not going to defend someone blindly because they are of the same sex. What difference does that make between me and a man? We've been accusing men for siding with men because they're men, and we're siding with women because we're women. No, fucking use your brain. Like, be just. I care about justice. I care about fairness. I care about true fucking equality. I don't care about fighting misogyny with misandry. And that's what pisses me off so much with girls online who are such hardcore feminists. That's not feminism. Feminism equals equality. Feminism does not mean that we have to be the men in the situation and we have to flip the power imbalances over its head. Like, I know that men have so much more control and has for like centuries and millennia that women have been eating shit, but that doesn't mean that you become the same person. You don't become your enemy. You become better than them. You show them what justice is. You become fucking just. So this is what pisses me off with girls online or women online, is the fact that they're just like, I side with the girl because she's a girl. You know, it doesn't matter if she's lying. It doesn't matter if she's wrong, or if you so much as scrutinize her, you're no longer a girl's girl. Go fuck yourself. Honestly speaking, read a fucking book. Get your head out of your ass because you have such a big ego. I understand that the world is unfair, but that doesn't mean we fight unfairness with unfairness. We have to be fair. We have to be logical. We have to be just. We have to be rational. We have to understand that people are going to weaponize your feelings and your insecurity to try to get what they want. You are giving validation to these white women who are crying tears because they know that no matter what, you're going to side with them because you're a girl's girl. You're a Swiftie. You stand for women regardless. Women can be bad too. Men can be bad. Women can be bad. That's what makes us human. That's what equality is recognizing that both men and women can be bad people. But then also men and women can be good people. It depends on their character. It doesn't depend on their fucking gender. I get so emotional because I've been seeing this a lot recently online, and they're like, I stand with her because she's a woman. Doesn't matter if she's wrong. Like, no, you're an idiot. Okay? You're stupid. Sorry. The only way for us to have a better future and to fix the wrongs of the past is to be just and fair. You don't fight unfairness with unfairness. You don't fight oppression with reverse oppression. Like, that doesn't work. And you don't vilify someone because of their gender. You vilify them because they're fucking bad human beings. They're bad humans. It doesn't matter if they're a man or a woman. Women can make mistakes. Men can make mistakes. That's just how the world works. So yeah, I wonder how all of this is going to go. Please let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Like, are you team Justin? Are you team Blake? What do you think about this whole situation? Who do you think is in the right? Who do you think is in the wrong? I'm curious to see what you guys think, honestly speaking. I want to continue having this conversation as it unfolds. And yeah, I really hope you enjoyed this episode. I tried to keep it short. Yeah, thank you guys so much for listening to Scroll Society, a members-only club for those who are chronically online. I'll see you in the next episode. Bye, guys.